Hey everybody. Boy, I just realized it's been a week since I posted the last video to document this whole this faith journey we're taking together. Um, it didn't dawn on me how far it had gone until I received a text message from a friend of mine wanting to know when was I doing the next one, because clearly I had been slacking. I wanted to know if he missed it. That's how much time had gone by. But it's just been busy trying to catch up with stuff, finishing up with the holidays, moving forward with things, job hunting. Those of you who haven't been following all along, I got furloughed from a company. Literally tomorrow will be a month. Today is Thursday, November 29th, and tomorrow will be a month that I was furloughed from the company. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I worked for Toyota Motors, moved to Texas when they relocated the headquarters and stayed there for 3 years. And I came back to California because I had a tremendous opportunity for a job to come back and work for here in the Los Angeles area. And after being at work for about 2 months, they, as a startup, which is something you expect, it runs out of cash. The thing is that my wife and I, when we discussed the move to Texas as well as moving back to California, we did not just do this just because the money was there, because the opportunity presented itself. This was something that we took on faith, and we prayed to God for direction. We believed that God was involved in our move to Texas, and we definitely believe that God was involved in the move back to California. And so I thought it was important to create this video or this vlog to discuss this faith journey, that when things, bad things, or as we see them as bad things that happen in our life, how do we cope with these situations and times when everything looks bad, when it's bleak? Today was an interesting day because rain was in the forecast. It was a little cold. I got a chance to break out a sweater, put a little hat on my head to keep me warm. But the news from the company that I work for was that they were trying to go through some issues with a Chinese company that had given them some money and looked like they, excuse me, were trying to get out of the deal. And as such, they had to go into arbitration, which is why they ran out of money. And so the plan for the company is that they would go and battle this whole issue out, and they would also seek additional funding, and they were going to bring all of us back January, so we'd be out of work for 2 months. Well, today I got a text message from my boss, who still is there. That there were some favorable things that had happened. Well, I take that back. Let me go back. We had received a text message about a week ago, right before Thanksgiving, that things were looking good and we would have some solid information. But today we got a different text message that kind of indicated that there were things that were favorable on the company's behalf. But at the same point in time, now it looks like, because they did some issues with the arbitration court, did some things that put the issues together. So now it looks like we're not going to have a decision on where that we can move forward for 3 to 6 months, which is 3 to 6 months from now, which is different from when you walk out the door on October 31st, that you'll be out of work. If things go well, you'll be out of work for 2 months and come back to work. But in the meantime, I had already been looking for jobs and wasn't going to sit and be content just to wait for these people to decide what they were going to do. And so, ironically, as a pastor of a church, I preached a series not too long ago about stress and worry, and why stress and worry should not be a part of the Christian life. We do understand that we have stress and worry because we're human. But then when we remember that we're people of faith, that we begin to change. In the Gospel of Matthew, I believe it was in the 6th chapter towards the end, starting around verse 25, God is telling everybody, or he's telling his disciples, to not worry about things. Don't worry about what clothes you wear, what you're going to eat. The birds of the air taken care of, the lilies of the field are taken care of. That God knows all of our needs. And that's something that was reassuring, that when you're facing these trials and you're facing these issues, that you remember that when you're a child of God, you don't have to worry about these things. And so I thought when I created this, it would be hopeful. I had hoped that it would be an inspiration for people, not because they're dealing with the same exact thing for me, but that whatever issue they were going through, that you understand, you don't have to worry. So when we get this news today, my first reaction, the first instinct is, oh my God, I've been looking for jobs, but I haven't really been pressing, because there is a part of me that is hoping that, hey, in January we'd come back to work, maybe I'd get a job in December, and maybe not, but either way it goes, I had money saved up, so it really wasn't going to hurt. And part of the promise that I won't say the promise, what the company had communicated is that if we were able to come back to work in January, they would give us our back pay. So whatever was taken out of my account to cover my living expenses now, I would get back, which was great news. But now hearing this today kind of puts a damper on things of 3 to 6 months now. So, I have money saved up, and I could live for another month or maybe 2 more, 3 months without having any financial strain. But that does start to begin to change the picture. So in my flesh, my reaction was, oh my God, now I got to step up my job hunt. Don't really mess around, really diligently every day. Get out there and start looking, making phone calls, networking, checking with the people who I've worked with, contacts, and the whole bit. And it dawned on me again, do not worry. Doesn't mean I don't stop, that I stop and not apply for jobs. I still have to go out there and do what I need to do. But the level of my intensity as far as what's going on in my concern, in my heart, and my spirit needs to be reminded that I am a child of God. So 2 weeks ago at my church, I started a new series to end the year for Christians, for all of us believers, to end the year strong. I was inspired by my friend Pastor Ray in Plano, Texas, the City Church, and he said that when he was praying, he wanted to know what message did God want to give his people in the last quarter of the year. Using the sports analogy, we look at this year, I don't know how this year has gone for you. I know how the year has gone for me. But like in sports, the beginning of the game does not determine the outcome. The beginning of this year, whatever happened in the middle of the year, whatever happened last week, is not going to determine what happens on December 31st, 2018, and how January 1st, 2019 is going to play out. We're coming to the end of the quarter, and we're now in the final minutes, the last few weeks. So we could either shrink or we can rise to the occasion. And so we started this series to look at God as the covenant maker, to introduce people to the covenant God, a God who not just makes a promise, but he establishes a covenant. And a covenant is much more. It is deeper than just a simple promise, although the Bible does say that God and his promises, but he establishes covenants with us. One of the covenants he established with us is that he would never leave us or forsake us. And to understand how serious a covenant is, you just have to read the Bible. Go back to Genesis and read about God when he established his covenant with Abraham. They would bring the animal. God tells them specifically, bring me the 5, I believe, animals. And Abraham cut them down the center and laid them out on the ground opposite, that if you put them back up together, they would be whole, but he cut them down the center and laid them out. And when you establish a covenant in the biblical time, you would leave them, put the animals down with the space in between. And what you would do is walk between the space of the animal. And that covenant was to say that if I violate this oath that we take today, may what happened to these animals happen to me. And when God and Abram entered into their covenant, Abram laid these out. And in the middle of the night, when he was going to sleep, he saw this fire come down from heaven and pass through the animals. That God is taking the seriousness, or taking the covenant so serious, that God is even saying to us that if I violate my oath to you, may what happened to these animals happen to me. And if you could just put that in the context of understanding the God we serve and how big he is, that his covenant established with us, that he's saying it's so serious to me that me as the all-powerful God am willing to say, let whatever happened to these animals happen to me. And so Part of what I discovered in this series is, and I looked at with some of these scientists now who point through their theory of general relativity, that they won't acknowledge God, but they acknowledge that there was a singularity that existed, a outside causal agent, as it is described by Dr. Stephen Hawking, that at this point of creation, there was something outside of space and time that existed that created space and time as we know it. And of course, we see that in Genesis 1:1, where the Bible says, and God said, let there be light, that he existed outside of space and time. But that led me to look at a snowflake. You can Google this on any search for any Yahoo, Google, and look for snowflakes. And there are some photographers that specialize in high definition photographs of ice or snowflakes. When you look at a snowflake, the intricate design, symmetrical and geometric in all its glory, equal lengths, perfect dimensions, and no two ice snowflakes are alike. They're so small you can't see it with your naked eye, the intricate details of that snowflake. But yet, God, in his infinite wisdom, took the time to design each individual snowflake. And when you start thinking about how that applies to us and where we are now, when we're in our midst of our storm and we're dealing with our issues, and my sermon last week was receiving the miracles of God. If a God would go through the trouble of creating an individual snowflake that cannot survive past the winter, can only exist in specific conditions, if he will go through the trouble to create this snowflake to be the unique piece of nature that it is, why would we doubt that God would make sure that everything that we need is provided for? He tells us in his word in that Matthew chapter 6, start about verse 25, that we are more valuable than the birds and more valuable than lilies. Don't you think you're more valuable than a snowflake? He went through the trouble to make these things unique, beautiful, and individual. And so you're here thinking things are not going in your favor, but God went through the trouble before you were here to make you special, to make you unique. If he would do that for you, do you actually believe that God would leave you alone and leave you to suffer? Do I believe that because I get a text message that says something contrary to what I think should be happening, that he is going to leave me here, bring me back to California to fail? I don't think so. I do not think so. God is greater than anything we have. So I want you to know my message today, longer than it's all the other ones. Do not doubt God. Do not worry about what God is doing. Don't look at your situation, no matter what it is, job, money, family, marriage, relationships, health. God is doing it on your behalf, period. He made you unique, special. No one else is like you for a specific purpose. He is not going to let you die. He is not going to let you fail. Let me rephrase that. I'm not going to say he's not going to let you die, because we're all going to die. God has a purpose for us. We just don't understand it. But if he went through the trouble to create all of this, the universe, down to specific detail of a snowflake, God has a purpose and a plan for you. Do not doubt him. Do not let your trust wane. Do not let doubt creep in and Satan creep in to change your perspective, to change the dialogue, to make you think that God has forgotten about you. He has not. Maybe that's why I'm here. Maybe that's why I'm going through my struggle, to remind you that what God is doing, it is working for good. It is working for the good on your behalf. Romans 8:28, for we know that all things work together for good. Remember this. And we know that all things are working together for good for those who love the Lord, those called according to his purpose. So as always, as I end today, 15 minutes later. I love you, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Peace.